welcome to the ITU studio here at WTDC-25, the World Telecommunication Development Conference, being held in Baku in Azerbaijan, where I'm very pleased to be joined in the studio this morning by Ms. Elizabeth Migwalla, who is the Vice President of Government Affairs for Qualcomm, and also one of the generous gold sponsors of the ITUD celebratory dinner, which was held last night, celebrating 30 plus years of impact. Elizabeth, welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Now, the theme of WTDC-25 this year is universal, meaningful and affordable connectivity for an inclusive and sustainable future. That's what we're going to be talking about. Elizabeth, can I start off by asking you, what policy frameworks are needed to ensure that AI and 5G technologies are deployed in ways that promote innovation and growth, particularly in rural and underserved regions?
Yes, thanks for having me. And maybe before I answer that question directly, I just want to observe that the ITUD offers a unique platform for collaboration between public and private sector. Let me just say all stakeholders with interest in digital and ICT, okay? And this platform allows stakeholders to examine emerging technologies and evolve policy frameworks that are responsive to countries' needs, okay? So while we know that the real technical work takes place in the radio communications and the standardization sectors, you know, with detailed technical proceedings, but I think the nature of ITUD, particularly the implementation and resource mobilization mandate, is critical in converting those technical deliberations into policies and tangible projects, particularly in the areas that you've just talked about. So, of course, AI and 5G are topical questions and discussions right now. And what we're talking about is how do we ensure that those underserved areas also have access, not just access, but actually can use these emerging technologies. And what we have found is that through our collaborative work with stakeholders is that the technology exists like it does everywhere. The capabilities to convert those technologies to solutions in those local, rural and underserved areas, actually capabilities exist locally. I think what's missing is to ensure that those innovators in their local environments are able to innovate and meet those challenges. So I want to say that by putting technology and putting exposure in the hands of local startups or local innovators, those solutions can be innovated. However, what we need from government is policies that enable them, policies that ensure that there is connectivity, clearly, you know, connectivity to those areas, policies that ensure that citizens are literate, digital literate, able to use. So it's those kinds of policies that would ensure that these emerging technologies can be not only innovated locally, but also utilized by the general population.
Now, how can governments collaborate with industry leaders like Qualcomm to accelerate 5G and edge computing across emerging markets in key public sectors such as education, healthcare, and agriculture?
Of course, this still goes down to, you talked about sectors like agriculture, like education, etc. I still come back to the point where the actual solutions need to be innovated locally, okay? Governments need to enable the innovation in their populations to thrive. So what we have found is that there are young, over 60% I would say in Africa, innovators who have ideas, who are today techno-savvy and are able to deploy technologies that we develop. But it's more the scaling of their solutions that again require government policies. First of all, open, enabling frequencies to be used, the frequencies that are required, but also the operators to have access to frequencies for 5G on terms that enable them to roll out in the rural and underserved areas.
as AI becomes a new interface for human potential, what safeguards and strategies are needed to ensure that digital transformation empowers rather than excludes vulnerable populations?
Of course, AI should help everyone, not leave anyone behind. So, of course, we need clear rules that focus on transparency, fairness, responsibility, accountability, and inclusiveness across the AI system design and deployments. So governments and companies, of course, must work together to make sure that AI systems are developed and trained using diverse representative databases, and that they are culturally relevant and accessible in local languages. So to me, that would really be the key.
Excellent. Well, Elizabeth Migwalla, Vice President of Government Affairs for Qualcomm, thank you so much for joining us in the studio. You're no stranger to ITU studios. We've done this before a number of times, and I'm very pleased to see you here, and wish you the very best for the rest of the conference.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And if you've enjoyed this interview, which I'm sure you will have, then do check out our other interviews on our YouTube channel, as well as our podcast on our podcast channels. And for further information, visit itu.int/WTDC-25. Thanks for tuning in.